Sometimes the loudest person in the room isn't telling their story, they're controlling yours. That hit already. Because have you ever noticed the person constantly telling everybody that you're difficult, you're toxic, you're crazy, you're bitter, you're the problem, really talks about what happened before everything fell apart? They tell people about your reactions, but they never talk about their actions. Welcome to the quiet storm, where all you need to do is listen. Take a breath with me first. Inhale and exhale. Because tonight's message is for the people who have been painted as the villain, simply because they finally stopped taking what was being done to them. Now listen carefully tonight. One of the most frustrating experiences in life is having somebody tell the story without telling the whole story. That's the first soul punch. Because some people become experts at editing reality. They tell people how you reacted, how angry you got, how distant you became, how you cut them off, how you stopped talking to them, how you changed. But they leave out what pushed you there, what they kept doing, what they kept saying, how long you stayed patient, how many chances you gave, how much you tolerated before you finally broke. And suddenly, the entire story sounds different. Because context changes everything. Now let's go deeper. Because this is where people start realizing what really happened. Some people know if the truth fully came out, people will start asking different questions. That line just hit somebody hard. Because instead of asking what's wrong with you, people ask what happened to you. Instead of asking why did you leave, people would ask, what were you enduring before you left? Instead of asking why were you angry, people would ask, what kept happening that finally pushed you over the edge? And that's exactly why some people rush to tell their version first. Because the first version people hear often becomes the version people believe. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book. Control the narrative, control perception, control the image. And some people spend more energy protecting their image than correcting their behavior. Now listen carefully tonight. There are people walking around right now being judged for their reactions, while the person who caused the reaction is being confronted. That hurts. Because people often see the explosion, but they never see the pressure building inside. They see the final argument, but they never see the years of disrespect. They see the boundary, but they never see the countless times that boundary was violated. They see the distance, but they never see the disappointment that created it. And that's why so many good-hearted people end up questioning themselves. Because now you're sitting there thinking, maybe I am the problem. That thought has broken a lot of people emotionally. Because when enough people repeat something about you, you start wondering if it's true. Now let's talk about something nobody explains enough. Some people need you to be the villain. Now that one hit deep. Because if you're not the villain, then they have to examine themselves. If you're not the problem, then they have to look at their behavior. If you're not crazy, then maybe your concerns were valid. If you're not toxic, then maybe they cause more damage than they're willing to admit. And for some people, that's a conversation they're not ready to have. So it's easier to blame you. Now listen carefully. One thing I've learned about life is that people rarely tell stories that make them look guilty. That's human nature. Most people tell stories in a way that protects themselves. And that's why whenever you're hearing a story, you should always ask yourself, what part am I not hearing? Because every story has their side, your side, and what actually happened. And some people become very skilled at removing their side completely. Now let's go deeper, because this next part is going to reach a lot of people. Some of you were patient for far longer than anyone realizes. That one hit. Because people saw the day you snapped. But they didn't see the months you stayed quiet, the conversations you tried having, the disrespect you overlooked, the forgiveness you kept offering, the chances you kept giving. They didn't see how many times you chose peace. They only saw the day you finally got tired. And that's the problem with being pushed to your limit. People often judge the breaking point without respecting the pressure that created it. That line right there. Because some people can provoke you for months, years even. And the moment you finally respond, they act shocked. Suddenly you're the issue. Suddenly you're different. Suddenly you're hard to deal with. But what they never discuss is how long you were dealing with them. Now listen carefully tonight. People who constantly tell everyone you're the problem often have one major fear. The fear that people might compare their words to their actions. Now that one hit hard. Because words are easy. Anybody can say, I'm a good person. I'm loyal. I'm honest. I cared. But actions tell the real story. And sometimes the people working hardest to protect their reputation are the same people who damage yours. Now let's talk about healing from this. Because being misunderstood hurts. Being falsely blamed hurts. Being painted as something you're not hurts. Especially when you know the truth. Especially when you know how much you sacrificed. Especially when you know how much you tolerated. That pain is real. But hear me clearly tonight. You cannot spend your life trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That's exhausting. Because some people have already chosen the version of the story they want to believe. And no amount of explaining will change that. The older you get, the more you realize something different. Not everybody deserves an explanation. Sometimes your peace is more valuable than proving your innocence. That line just set somebody free. Because healing isn't always about getting everyone to understand your side. Sometimes healing is accepting that the truth exists, even when other people refuse to acknowledge it. And here's the beautiful thing about truth. Truth doesn't need constant maintenance. Lies do. People who are performing innocence usually have to keep performing. People who are manipulating narratives usually have to keep manipulating. People who are hiding their role usually have to keep hiding. But the truth eventually reveals itself through patterns, through consistency, through character, through time. That one hit deep. Because eventually people start noticing. People notice behavior. People notice who creates drama everywhere they go. People notice who keeps having the same issues with different people. And eventually the story starts telling on itself. Now take one last breath with me. Inhale and exhale. And just sit with this truth tonight. The person who keeps telling everyone you're the problem may not be trying to tell their story. They may be trying to make sure nobody asks about yours. Because if people ever heard the full story, they might stop asking, what's wrong with you? And start asking, what did they do to you? And for some people, that's the question they've been trying to avoid all along. Thank you for tuning in to The Quiet Storm. Make sure you give this video a like and leave me a comment down below. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.